You are watching Kisima Radio Heart-to-Heart Communication, where we are dealing with a fountain Engu Kingdom Leadership. Your host, MK Nkosana, my co-host,
Lisa Nyalimani.
Yes, and our guest for today is Pastor Luthando Tofu. Yes. Fundis, namhlanje I believe the topic here will be dealing with defining what is kingdom leadership. Kas unpackela Fundis.
Yeah, so I mean there are different types and models of leadership.
Okay.
And so this one is specific, and I mean abantu bangayijonga in various ways, but I want to define it specifically in light of when we break down the two elements of kingdom and leadership.
Okay.
Kingdom being the language we use of returning people back to the original vision of God for humanity.
Okay.
Not just church, not just abazalwane, but for humanity. God's original vision when He created people.
Okay.
So when then we talk leadership in that context, we're talking a leadership that attempts to revert people back to that original view and vision of God. So the outworking yayo is restoration, is restorative, back to the original vision of God. So I think that's the most basic way I can define and describe it. In endlela I guess awuziveza ngayo as we continue to chat about it,
okay.
But I think that's the basic foundation of it. It's not bringing people back to church. It's not even talking about salvation for that matter, as critical as it is. But it's about reverting people back to what was His plan, what was His vision for man and woman. And so when we lead with that perspective in mind, and not an intervention, but a perspective of reverting to Lando.
Okay. And Mfundisi, would you say in kingdom leadership, is it specific to male or female? I mean, we've got a female amongst us. Are females also able to be kingdom leaders, or is it a duty just specifically given to men?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when we're talking about when we're talking about God's original vision,
yeah.
We're talking about Him saying He created male and female, man and woman, in His image, and He made them one. He didn't make two people; He made them one as He joined them together.
Okay.
So in light of our understanding of the kingdom, we're talking a distinct gender, male and female. Some may argue in whatever light they might want to argue that there's a third gender, but in this case, we're going biblically and speaking about two genders, male and female, who are made in the image of God, equal,
okay.
with a purpose, with an agenda to fulfill on earth. So then the task of leadership in the kingdom is for both male and female, not just one gender.
Okay.
And quite in fact, if we subscribe it only to male, then it becomes incomplete.
Okay.
Because the picture is not complete until God joins these two in partnership to fulfill His mission.
Wow.
Mfundisi, what would you say, what is God's intent about leaders? What does God want to see? What was His intention when He created a leader in His own image?
So then the general assumption would be that a leader is a leader comes because there's something to be led towards.
Okay.
But God's original plan was that He created humanity as leaders. When He then gave them the responsibility, because He gave them responsibility, and that's what made them leaders. When He created nature, He created all of those things, and then He said, now you take authority, you take responsibility, quite in fact. In other words, we use the term stewardship.
Okay.
So that stewardship is a sense of responsibility. So in that way, His vision originally was that man would lead nature, would lead creation, would be God on earth as He is in heaven. So that's why I usually illustrate that what heaven is for God, Eden was for man.
Okay.
So what God then created was a space for men to express that leadership. Not over one, over another. And that we must correct.
Okay.
God's original vision for leadership was never that man dominates over another or over a woman. They were meant to lead creation, co-leading creation. And so that's one of the things that we don't talk about, especially in our Pentecostal tradition of thought, is that we don't care much about creation. We care about people, but we don't pay much attention to creation. Yet God gave men leadership over creation. And what does that mean? What does that imply? Even in light of how things are socially, how things are globally, the nature is kind of revolting against humanity, with tsunamis, with earthquakes, with all of those things, because we are not paying attention to the cry of nature, yet we are responsible for nature. What does that mean? We're depleting our natural resources, we're polluting our own planet, but we are not paying attention to that, yet we are called to lead. But we are so infused with the idea of leading on top of one another, and not what it is that God intended.
Wow. So would you say normal leadership versus kingdom leadership, is there a distinct difference? I'm a leader, generally at work I'm a leader, so would you say that that enables that person to say then I am a kingdom leader? What makes a difference between a normal leader to kingdom leader?
There are various aspects, and I'm hoping that in time as we continue we will kind of unpack some of those things. But it's a matter of how you lead rather than whether you lead. There are people with a sense of leadership, with a sense of responsibility. Fine, that's leadership. But how you lead is what defines what we're talking about in kingdom leadership. The expression, the attitude, the understanding behind how you do things, how you lead, and what are the outcomes, what are the results of your leadership. Those are the nitty-gritties of what defines kind of a kingdom-minded leadership, and I'm hoping that we can unpack that as we continue in this series.
Umfundisi speaks of the character and what is expected of a kingdom leader. Can you just go on in that manner? How do we get there? How do we go back into the original form? What's it created to lead?
So I think when that's a big question.
I agree.
I may not be able to answer it all in this session, but I think that's a core, that's the heart of why we have to talk about this. Because it doesn't begin with me assuming a position of leadership. It begins with me understanding the intention of leadership. And it begins with me understanding the heart of God towards leadership. And when I then frame myself in that way, then I assume a different posture into leadership. So for an example, when we're talking kingdom leadership, we're not talking hierarchical leadership, we're talking about leadership leading from the front, exemplary leadership, not hierarchical leadership. So as Jesus would say that you don't lord it over people. That's not the way.
Like what organizations do.
Like what organizations do.
Speaks to organizational leadership.
Exactly.
Okay.
So perhaps one of the things I would highlight with that, in most terms when we're talking leadership, we use the term empowerment.
Yes.
There's this word that goes on, it's been going on for years, we talk about empowerment, which assumes that I know and therefore I'm imparting what I know to you to be empowered.
Okay.
But when we're talking kingdom leadership, we're talking about inherent traits that I have as a person that need to be unlocked in me. So we're talking about empowerment. You understand what I mean? So my starting point when I deal with you in terms of unlocking your leadership it becomes unlocking your purpose first. It's all in you. Okay. But you need to be helped to bring it to the surface.
Okay.
and as then you exercise and as you learn, then you become empowered.
Wow.
So most people and most organizations assume that you're quite, in fact, even the whole system that we live in assumes that there's not much in you until we teach you what you should be. And that's not kingdom
Of which your kingdom leadership is vice versa.
Exactly.
It is already in you, it just needs to be unlocked.
Exactly. Because then the problem is that if I assume it in that way, then I hold the key to the information that flows to you. So then I control the information, which will make you into an image I already have of what you should be. So when we're talking kingdom leader, we're talking about God's original design for me. I exist, and God has downloaded information into my DNA of what I should be. So now, my task, if I'm leading you, is to unlock that, so that you become fully who you are, even if it doesn't reflect who I am as the one who leads you, but it reflects Him who made you.
So in actual essence, you are saying when you are a kingdom leader, you actually inspire what is already in there. Your job is to make the person that you are dealing with recognize that this thing is in you, but now it needs to come out for you to actually be the vessel that you were intended to.
And that's a whole game of life that I believe God wanted us to experience. He created them and put them in the Garden of Eden and said, explore, become your best self, but do that in my presence. It's the Holy Spirit, the presence of the Spirit of God that enable people to become the best version of themselves. But then where we've landed now is that we've designed a system over centuries and centuries, thousands of years, that then dictates people, especially from the age of enlightenment into now, the industrial age until now. We process people into a system that feeds itself by creating people in its own image. I know that when you are born, you go through a series of phases that shape who you should be for the system, but not necessarily who you should be as God's design. You go to preschool, you go to high school, you go to all of those things. They shape who you are, but they don't necessarily define who you are. So you get people who are shaped into a certain mold, but still don't know who they are.
Wow. Fundis, in closing, visionary leadership, as we're obviously going to unpack all these as we go in our next episodes. But briefly, Nje, definition of what a visionary leadership is.
Yeah. So when we're talking visionary leadership now, I'll express this as an aspect, which is critical in us talking about kingdom leadership. The term visionary is taken from the word vision. It kind of builds on the understanding of the function of the eye, vision, and in it, I believe there are two major aspects that we'll probably talk about, but it denotes the ability to be able to see futuristic kind of imagery and bring it into life, which is one of the gifts that God has given us, because when He created man, He said He created them like Him. So we have the ability of the Creator in us. We are able to create that which doesn't exist into existence. So a visionary then would be somebody who sees something that's not there and creates it, brings it into life. But then the other aspect of visionary leadership is the function, which is what I want us to talk about first. The function of these two elements. I'm not sure if I should go into them now or if we will have time.
Don't go into them now. Don't go into them now, because I know you.
But it is critical because it also gives a dimension to our understanding of leadership, and not in the sense, because sometimes, especially if you are a church person like me, you see a pastor who goes and puts up a tent and then starts a ministry and then everybody calls him the visionary. Which vision are we talking about? Because when we're talking visionary leadership, we're not talking duplication of what I know or what I grew up on. There are aspects to visionary leadership that needs to be defined. defined as we go into it, that people then can be able to understand when we're talking about the true vision of what that entails.
Wow. Viewers, I don't know about you guys, but from where I'm sitting, Umfundisi still has a lot in store, as you can hear. We wanted to go on. You were watching Kisima Radio, heart-to-heart communication, where we were dealing with kingdom leadership. And this is my whole co-host,
Lisa Nyalvani.
Lisa Nyalvani. And our guest was Umfundisi Uluthando Tofu.